We imagine castles as places of honor, glory, and grand feasts, but the truth is far more haunting. Behind these towering walls, fear was constant, silence was law, and not every scream made it past the stone. Beneath the banners and stained glass, secret chambers hid betrayal, boiling oil-guarded gates, and every step was watched. These fortresses didn't just protect, they controlled, divided, and punished. Tonight, we journey past the myths, deep into the cold heart of medieval castles, to uncover the secrets they were built to hide. The iron gate groans open beneath a sky choked with mist. Its hinges cry like something alive, not from age alone, but from memory, as if it remembers every footfall that ever passed through, every march of boots into blood and silence. The villagers stand still, breath held, their faces half-shadowed beneath woolen hoods, watching the noble procession arrive. Cloaks drag across the wet stone, soaked at the hem. Hooves clatter like war drums against the cobbled earth. Behind them, carts creak under the weight of chests, armor, silk, wealth made visible, power made mobile. Inside the castle walls, the air changes. It is colder here, though fires burn. The chill seeps from the stone itself, from its mortar, soaked in centuries of command. It lives not just in the halls, but in the way glances pass upward, downward, never equal. Every expression is measured, every breath a negotiation of place. Within these walls, people do not simply live, they survive their roles. The great hall is cavernous, a world of its own. Candles drip like dying trees along the long wooden tables. Firelight dances on ancient beams carved with heraldry, and prayers no one reads anymore. The lords and ladies sit high, their cups refilled before they're emptied, their meat steaming with excess. Boar, honey, fat cheeses from distant lands, a performance of plenty, gilded and rehearsed. But beneath the silver goblets, secrets rot. Whispers travel faster than light in a room like this. A crooked smile, a faltering gaze, a delay in standing. When the Baroness passes, all remembered, all judged, the servants move like ghosts, barefoot, silent, trained to disappear. You'll know them only by the creak of a floorboard behind your chair or the sudden warmth of wine refilled. Their eyes rarely rise above waist level. They sleep in attics, crawl spaces, storage rooms, wherever the heat of the kitchens reaches, and the rats have already taken their fill. Their names are forgotten as soon as they're spoken, their histories erased by the castle's hunger for obedience. Outside, the wind carries the scent of damp hay and old iron. A boy, no older than 12, swings a dull wooden sword at shadows on the grass. His strikes are clumsy, but his breath is steady. His face is lined with something beyond his years. He doesn't look up at the battlements, though he knows who watches. Above him, a guard sharpens steel. The blade sings softly against the whetstone, the sound lost in the wind. His eyes are distant, always on the horizon. He prepares for a siege that may never come, yet cannot afford not to. This is the rhythm of the castle. Prepare, serve, obey. There is no room for delay, no time for doubt. Evenings bring a stillness, but not rest. The sun sinks behind the towers, casting long shadows across the courtyard. Torches flicker to life, one by one, like fireflies born from stone. The bells toll the hour. The chapel door closes with a hush, and inside, a lone voice sings a prayer into the rafters. Not for glory, not for salvation, but for the strength to wake again, to endure another day inside walls that listen more than they speak. Castles are spoken of as strongholds, as crowns of stone. But strength is only one part of their truth. They were stages, grand theaters of fear and order. Every corridor a cue, every silence a script. To falter was to fall. A misplaced word could mean exile, a forbidden kiss, ruin. Even among nobles, the rules were blades, hidden until drawn. And yet, within the cold and control, there were moments of softness. A candle left burning a little longer in a chamber so someone could finish sewing. A kitchen boy slipping an apple to a girl too thin for her apron. A hand pressed beneath a table, brief and trembling, before vanishing again. These were rebellions of a different kind, small, flickering lights that refused to go out. But the walls always remembered. They held the echoes of every punishment, every stolen breath, every oath whispered in the dark. They knew what happened when the gates closed at night and the world outside was shut out like a sin. They remembered the child who vanished after the feast, the knight who fell from the tower without a scream, the servant girl who never returned from the well. And in the morning, when the sun rose pale behind the towers, life resumed, as if nothing had happened, as if the stone had not swallowed it whole. Inside these castles, life was both protected and imprisoned. The same gate that kept enemies out also kept truth in. Loyalty was currency, silence was survival, and every step echoed with footsteps. Of the past, some called them homes, others prisons, but all who lived within their walls understood one thing: the stone remembers, even when the people forget. And somewhere, far below, beneath the cold floors and forgotten stairwells, something shifts. A door unopened for years breathes dust into the air, and the next secret begins to stir. Asterisk. Rain drips from the rusted gargoyle's mouth, falling like slow tears into the muddied courtyard below. Each splash is swallowed by the silence of dawn. A woman kneels at the base of a blood-stained trough, scrubbing crimson from a knight's surcoat. The fabric clings to her hands, slick and heavy, as though it resists forgetting. Her fingers, cracked and reddened, move not with urgency, but with resignation, the same motions she made yesterday and the day before that. Her knees, raw from years upon stone, rest on a patch of earth that has soaked in the grief of generations. No one speaks to her. No one even sees her. Yet she bears witness to everything: the violence, the vanity of violence beneath her. The ground holds stories it dare not speak. Centuries of boots, of hooves, of dragged bodies, and spilled secrets. The rain does not cleanse. It remembers. Deep in the belly of the castle, flames crackle in the ovens. A cook, shoulders bent like a question, slaps dough with a rhythm that has more anger than care. Smoke curls through the stone vents, mixing with the scent of burning crust. She wipes sweat from her brow with the back of her wrist, leaving behind a smudge of soot. Her mind is not on the bread. Not today. Word travels fast through servant mouths. Whispers of uprisings, rumors of a poisoned goblet. A cup passed too eagerly by a trembling hand. In the upper chambers, Velvet curtains are drawn open. A nobleman inspects his reflection in a polished bowl of water, adjusting the waxed tip of his mustache. His wife tightens the laces of her embroidered gown, the threads stitched by a woman whose name she's already forgotten. A servant girl moves silently behind them, placing a gold comb on the table, her eyes downcast. She has learned the art of becoming invisible, to drift like smoke from room to room, carrying gowns, carrying secrets. And then the feast begins. The great hall glows with the dance of 100 candles. Chandeliered firelight glints off silver goblets and jeweled rings. A bard plays softly in the corner, his song lost beneath the murmur of alliances and laughter that does not reach the eyes. Trays of meat are passed from one end of the hall to the other, each bite a reminder of power, each swallow an unspoken dare. A dog barks. A lord hushes him. Somewhere near the back, a servant trembles. She has just realized she poured from the wrong pitcher. No one notices. Not yet. Because nothing at this feast speaks of fear. Nothing shows the cracks forming beneath the stone. The noblemen toast to peace while their sons polish blades. They sing of honor while paying spies. They dance as though the earth isn't shifting beneath them. But those who sweep the floors and clean the wounds, those who empty the chamber pots and scrub the cloth, they feel it. They know that within these walls, loyalty is not love, it is silence. Even now, as wine spills from a toppled goblet and bleeds into the tapestry, no one says a word. The music continues. A lord laughs too loudly. A lady dabs the corner of her mouth with a lace handkerchief, eyes flicking toward the high table, where a young knight hesitates before drinking. He is the third son. He has no title. But tonight, he was invited to sit among the heirs. He does not yet know why. Somewhere below, in the shadows of the storage vaults, a pair of stable boys pass a parchment back and forth, smudged with wax, stamped with a foreign seal. They cannot read it, but they know what it means. They've heard the name whispered in the stables. They've seen the stranger in the black hood arriving just before dawn, speaking to the steward in hushed tones. They do not speak of it aloud, not even to each other. Upstairs, a goblet is lifted. The young knight looks into it. The liquid reflects. His face, unfamiliar, distorted. A toast is made. He drinks. No one watches him after that. The rain has stopped, but the gargoyle still weeps. In the silence that follows the final course, a gust of wind flutters the tapestry behind the high seat. Behind it, a small stone is missing. Just enough space for a scroll, or a dagger, or a truth too dangerous to carry in the open. Castles were built for defense, but they are just as skilled at hiding behind banners, behind smiles, behind duties. Etched into every cold corridor, for those inside, every day is theater, and every actor knows, to survive the performance, you must never forget your place. The washerwoman returns to the courtyard. The blood has faded, but not vanished. She lifts the surcoat, still damp, and wrings it with a motion that could be mistaken for mourning. Then she folds it neatly, her hands trembling as though she has just buried someone. The feast will end, but the hunger never does. And tonight, behind the chapel door, a confession waits, one whispered too late, one that may fracture the very stone it was meant to be buried beneath. The forge breathes fire into the bones of morning. Smoke coils upward into a sky still stained with frost, and the clang of hammer on iron is steady, not rhythmic, but raw, like a heartbeat struggling to keep pace with the weight of war. Inside, the smithy embers flicker across soot-dark walls, dancing in the black eyes of a man who hasn't spoken since his son went off to battle and never came home. His hands are blistered, his apron stiff with grime, yet he hammers on, not forging weapons, but shaping survival, one blow at a time. Beyond the heat and steel, behind the castle's stables, the mud clings thick as memory. A stable boy limps through the mire, bridle in hand, blood smudged against his fingertips where leather snapped back during the morning's rush. His breath clouds the chill air as he passes the horses, their flanks twitching, their breath rising, like steam from the mouths of silent beasts. They are war-trained, muscle-bound, eyes wide, with fire and instinct. Each one knows the smell of fear, and so does he above. Where the wind never stops cutting, a commander stands beside his squire, atop the parapets. No orders, no boasts, only gestures. A crooked stone here, a blind angle there. He points, not to glory, but to vulnerability. He does not teach how to kill, but where death hides. His armor does not gleam, and his eyes do not blink. In this cold, to speak too loudly is to admit weakness. War is coming, or it is already here. In castles like this, they never really know the difference. Inside the walls, every corridor is a chessboard, every stairwell a trap. These stones were not laid for comfort, but for control. The narrow arrow loops, the curving towers, the shifting light, each was crafted with the foresight of fear. A well-placed torch can illuminate a spy. A shadowed niche can swallow an assassin. The moat may stop a horse, but it's the servant who sees the gate unbarred, the chamber left unlocked, the message passed beneath a plate of bread. It is not the Lord who knows where the corridors narrow to a whisper, where footsteps vanish into hollow spaces. It is the scullery maid who hides from beatings in the storage tunnels. It is the cook who knows which beams creak, which locks stick, which doors open only when pressed just right. They do not wear armor, but they move through the bones of this place like blood through veins. There is power in that knowing, a terrible, quiet power. Once, long ago, a traitor's dagger ended a king's feast before the bread reached the table. They never found the blade, but the steward that night. He was gone before sunrise, vanished like smoke, like secrets do. The castle's strength is not just in its walls, but in its whispers. Whispers that travel with the ash and settle in the straw. Whispers known not to those who rule, but to those who serve. A boy with mud-crusted heels knows where the hidden latch sticks. A washerwoman, half-blind, can count every step from dungeon to dais by sound alone. The men at the top may plot, but it is the ones beneath them who breathe life into the design and death. For when rebellion stirs, it does not begin with swords. It begins with silence, with a spoonful less gruel, with a message carved into the underside of a bench, with a bridle left broken, a horse unshod, a guard misled. When the gate opens from within, it is not the enemy who wins. It is the boy who knew where the stones crumbled, who watched and waited. This castle, like all others, was built to withstand armies, but not betrayal. Not the slow erosion of loyalty, the subtle revolt of memory, the the soft defiance of footsteps, too light to be heard. The blade that changes history is never swung in the open. It is drawn in shadow, and as the forge dies down and the final sparks hiss into the ash, the castle does not sleep. It listens. Every creak, every breath, every unspoken fear settles deeper into the mortar. Tomorrow a torch may fall. A rider may not return. A door may open that should have stayed shut. And it won't be the knight who knows why. It will be the boy with raw hands and muddy knees, slipping silently through stone halls, where power was never kept by the crown, but by the ones who passed unseen beneath it. Beneath the chapel, where the stone sweats cold and the air tastes of time, a single flame dances against the damp. The monk's voice, dry and worn, murmurs in Latin, not for ears, but for absolution. His breath fogs in the cold, rising like incense toward the vaulted ceiling above. He kneels between tombs whose names have long faded, whispering prayers for souls whose sins are buried deeper than the bones. The silence here is not empty. It hums with memory, with guilt, with divine expectation. Dust hangs motionless in the air, catching firelight like falling stars. Each step he takes creaks like an old confession. The wood of the staircase groans beneath his weight as he climbs back toward the scriptorium, a room where words live longer than men. There, beneath cracked windows and the slow drift of candle smoke, parchment stretches taut across oak desks. Quills scratch in rhythm, transcribing not only the word of God, but the law of kings, the two tongues that shape a world. In ink black as midnight sin, monks copy prayers beside proclamations, papal bulls beside royal decrees. To disobey either is heresy. To obey both is impossible. Each letter, each flourish is a vow, a curse, a record, a threat. These pages will outlast the castle's stone. They will condemn or crown. But above this room of scribes and sanctity, another kind of scripture is written not in ink, but in silence. In the lady's chamber, the world is stitched in silk and sealed with wax. Curtains drawn tight, a hearth that crackles only when trusted ears are near. She leans close to her handmaid, whispering through a smile meant for the world. A letter, pressed with her ring's seal, vanishes into linen folds. It will travel farther than a knight ever could, faster than banners ever change. Words, when whispered right, can bring armies to heel without ever drawing a blade. She is not armored in chainmail, but in poise. Her battlefields are corridors and gardens, feast, halls, and prayer circles. Her weapons, a glance, a gesture, a rumor placed with care. In the court, a raised eyebrow is more dangerous than a raised sword. Outside, the world believes in knights and kings. Inside, the balance of power sits in the hands of those unseen. The handmaid who overhears too much, the page who reads lips. Behind curtains, the priest who confesses more than he absolves. Not all battles echo in the courtyard. Some are fought in bedchambers, behind veils, beneath candlelight. A goblet turned just so, a whispered message hidden in an embroidery pattern no man would dare inspect. A birth delayed or feigned, a name removed from the record. The deepest cuts are the ones that never bleed in this place. Power drips, not roars. Secrets move, like rats in the walls. Some are meant to be passed along. Others are meant to die in silence. Yet even here, in the softest chambers, danger presses in, not from swords, but from knowledge, from knowing too much, from knowing too little. And so the monks write, and the ladies whisper, and the walls remember, a book locked away beneath the altar, a name scratched into the wood of a writing desk, a vow sworn beneath the weight of lace and gilt. These are the things that shape kingdoms, just as surely as sieges and swords. And in the stillness of night, when the torches gutter and the bells no longer toll, both monk and mistress find themselves staring into flame, wondering which truths must be preserved and which must be buried forever. This is not just a castle of defense. It is a cathedral of control, a sanctuary for secrets, a temple of shadows, because behind every wall of stone, there is a wall of silence. And when the silence breaks, it is never with a cry, but with the soft rustle of parchment, the snap of wax, the sound of footsteps vanishing into the dark. But secrets, like embers, never die easy. Even the faintest glow, left untended, can one day ignite a fire no kingdom is prepared to face. And in the next breath, it is no longer the ink that shapes fate, but the flame. Would you like the next chapter to explore how revolts and uprisings begin inside castle walls, or shift back to life outside the walls, the peasants who unknowingly carry the weight of these secrets? Midnight cloaks the castle in stillness. Somewhere beyond the great hall, behind stone veils and iron-forged hinges, a corridor stirs to life. Their breath visible in the damp air. One nods. The other draws a key, bone-handled, smooth from use, and slips it into a lock no noble speaks of. The door opens with a groan like something ancient being awakened. The dungeons beneath are colder than death. The air is thick, not with smoke or rot, but with the residue of fear, old and soaked into the stone. These are not halls, they are wounds. The walls weep. The chains do not jangle but sigh. And somewhere in the blackness, the past still screams, down. Here, truth is not confessed. The art of pain is honed like the edge of a blade. Torture is not chaos. It is rhythm, a turning wheel, a tightened rope, a fire's ember pressed just so. Sometimes it is the absence of sound that breaks the spirit, the days without speech, the weeks without light, the namelessness that swallows a man until even memory becomes a stranger. The accused need not be guilty. Sometimes they are only inconvenient, a rival, a rumor. They vanish into the stone, and the castle above continues to feast, to dance, to pray, while beneath a mouth gapes open in not the trumpet, but the scream and legend. There is no madness here, only method. The torturer does not rage. He records, he measures, he listens. A scribe in shadows, chronicling confessions as currency. Because truth in this place is not sacred. It is shaped, bent like steel upon the rack until it serves its master. Above, in chambers, gilded with tapestries and laughter, no one speaks of what lies beneath, but every lord who sits on the throne has heard the echoes. Every noble who smiles at a feast feels the cold. Its stones whisper when the wind creeps in. Its corridors twist unnaturally. like veins around a wounded heart. Against rebellion, against truth to rule, one must crown joy with a hidden blade, a celebration with a silent threat, because peace in this world is not the absence of war, it is the perfection of control. And those who wander these dungeons, the jailer, the broken, the ghosts, they become part of the foundation. The stones drink their pain, and in time they forget their names. Soaked into the air, there is a throne above, but it is the dungeon that makes it sacred. And when the guards return to lock the rusted door, they do not speak, they do not need to. The silence knows them. The torch flutters once more, then dies, casting the corridor into pitch, but above. In the chapel's tower, a bell prepares to toll. Morning is near, and not all sins can stay buried. Not all truths can be silenced. The next breath of dawn may carry more than incense. It may bring blood or justice, or a reckoning shaped not by chains, but by memory. Midwinter lays its hand heavy upon the castle. The sky, slate gray and endless, weeps cold rain that lashes the cobbled courtyard like a punishment. Wind howls through arrow slits and shutters, echoing like the cries of ghosts who died in winters. Past servants bend beneath soaked cloaks, boots slipping on stone, slick with filth and ice, dragging barrels of salted meat and sacks of grain that feel lighter than they should. The castle groans beneath the weight of the coming frost, not with battle, but with the hunger it carries in its bones. Within the great kitchen, the air is thick, thick with smoke, with sweat, with the sour scent of desperation masked by spice. A pot bubbles, broth thin and uncertain. A cook, her hands cracked from heat and cold alike, stirs with a ladle heavy as any blade. She mutters not to others, but to herself, tallying meat like sins. 3 hens left, no more onions, flour barely enough for bread. Behind her, a boy coughs as he fans embers that refuse to roar. And still above, in the high halls where painted ceilings hold scenes of battles no living soul remembers. The feast begins. The nobles sit in wool and fur, gold rings flashing as goblets are raised. Laughter blooms, too loud, too warm, as a boar's head steams beneath rosemary and apples. Wine flows like memory. A servant girl, no more than 12, stands behind a curtain and watches, her stomach aching with the silence of its own emptiness. Her hands shake as she clutches a crust of black bread stolen from the edge of the hearth. It is cold, so is she. The castle is divided, not by moat or wall, but by appetite. In the halls of the powerful, winter is romantic. A season of music, mulled wine, lovers huddled by fire. But in the passageways, in the storerooms, in the cells carved into stone, it is survival, raw and unsparing. Every gust of wind through the shutter warns of scarcity. Every missing barrel means a shortened life. Below the chapel, the cellars are counted more often than the souls of the dead. The steward walks among them with a candle held close to the ledgers, eyes narrowed. Rats scatter as he opens lids, counts salted fish and dried peas. He sighs and closes the book. The prayers this winter will be for full bellies, not salvation. Upstairs, a noblewoman smiles as she feeds a grape to her hound. She does not know the name of the girl who stitched her slippers, or the mother who died birthing her maid. She has heard of famine but only as something that happens in distant villages, not behind her own stone walls. But the truth is this: the castle defends some and devours others. It does not bleed when a servant vanishes. It does not mourn when a stable boy is found frozen by the hay. It simply continues. Another fire lit, another curtain drawn. The dead are buried before dawn in frozen soil, unmarked, unnamed. In a corner of the servants' quarters, a young woman pulls her child close. The child's breath fogs in the air. They are wrapped in the furs of animals, hunted by lords, their warmth a mockery of the cold justice of class. She hums a lullaby older than the stones, her voice hoarse from days without meat. The melody is soft, but beneath it lies fear, not of wolves or raiders, but of an empty morning. And this is the castle's final defense, not the ramparts or boiling oil, but silence. The kind of silence that settles deep, that tells the starving not to speak, the suffering not to scream, because winter is not heroic, it is not noble, it is a quiet executioner, slow and deliberate, and it takes those the nobles will never name. By February, the fires burn lower. By March, the stew is only water and memory, and still the nobles dance outside the walls. Peasants speak of this place as a fortress, a stronghold against the cruel world. But within, those who live beneath stairs and behind doors know better. They know the truth hidden in the chill of stone and the emptiness of bowls, that this place, for all its banners and beauty, keeps its secrets buried in the snow. As the wind screams through the battlements and another child slips into fevered sleep, a raven lands on the highest spire. Its black eyes reflect the last light of a pale sun, and its wings shake free the frost. Tomorrow will be colder, and deep in the shadows of the granary, something stirs, because after hunger comes desperation, and that is when castles begin to crack, not from enemy swords, but from within. Dawn breaks, not in warmth, but in warning. A pale gold creeps across the horizon, diluted by mist that clings to the watchtower like breath on cold iron. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolls once deep, metallic, reluctant. Its echo rolls down stone corridors and across the great touched fields, where hoarfrost paints the grass like powdered bone. A lone rider appears upon the eastern path. His cloak is ragged, the hem stiff with dust and yesterday's rain. The hooves of his horse strike the earth without rhythm, worn and weary. He leans forward, head bowed, as if the message he carries is heavier than the journey itself. In one hand, he clutches a scroll sealed in black waximonis, unread, but already dangerous. The castle stirs. Archers shift atop the battlements. A guard lowers his visor. The portcullis groans open with the caution of an old wound. Every man watching wonders what word has come. An alliance, a betrayal, a border breached in the night. And in their silence, the rider passes beneath stone teeth into the mouth of something colder than the winter wind. Uncertainty. In the great hall, footsteps quicken. Pages hurry with torches that hiss in the damp air. The war room breathes awake, a chamber of tension and cold logic. Maps are unfurled like sacred relics, their parchment edges curling with age. Bloodless fingers trace faded borders with reverence and fear. Names are spoken in half-whispers, as though saying them too loudly might summon armies or assassins. The message is read by a lord whose crown is heavy with paranoia. His eyes linger not on the words, but on what might lie between them: threat, promise, or trap. Around him, his council sits like statues of war, cloaked in silence and calculation. One stirs, mutters a single name. Another nods. That name is remembered or erased. This is no court of nobility. It is a theater of shadows. In medieval castles, trust is not a virtue. It is a weapon best hidden. The messenger may ride under truce, but his food is tasted by a servant. His boots are searched. He is given a bed in a room with no windows. Even letters from allies are opened with gloves and caution, for even ink can carry treason, and wax can conceal more than words beneath the banners and gilded ceilings. This truth breathes in silence. Castles do not just defend walls, they defend memory dynasties carved from blood, debts that sleep. Beneath wine-stained floors, secrets buried with sons who spoke too freely. Every corridor holds echoes. Every door remembers the last time it was broken down. Even the kitchens are thick with whispers. Servants trade glances as they ladle stew, wondering who might vanish before next moonrise. Loyalty here is not rewarded. It is tested, and often it is punished. A lord's smile may mask intent sharper than any blade. A goblet passed in jest may be the last one tasted. A gesture pause can ripple into war. There are no true allies within these walls, only shared fears and temporary silence. And yet, life continues. In the courtyard, squires polish armor for wars that have not yet begun. Children play beside statues of men who died in forgotten sieges. A lady drops her veil and prays not for peace, but for clarity: who to trust, when to speak, how to survive. The castle breathes as one immense body, but its heart beats alone in every chest. Outside the walls, the wind shifts. Somewhere far away, another rider saddles a horse. Another scroll is sealed. The game continues. One letter, one whisper, one misstep away from collapse. Inside the castle, no one sleeps easily. Even the stones seem to listen. For in the end, the truest secret of every fortress is this: there is no such thing as safety, only delay, only shadows, only walls built high enough to make you believe you are not being watched. But fate doesn't knock it, seeps in through cracks in stone, through names once forgotten, and through the quiet rustle of parchment, still damp with morning mist. The castle still stands, its stones weathered by time, its secrets sealed beneath layers of silence and shadow. Tourists may now walk its halls, marvel at the armor, trace fingers along the cold walls, but they cannot hear the whispers. They do not feel the dread once woven into every glance, every guarded breath. These walls held power, but also fear. They offered protection, but demanded obedience. Inside, the line between safety and suspicion was thinner than a blade's edge. And no matter how high the towers reached, fate always found a way in. Because, in the end, medieval castles were not just strongholds of stone. They were battlegrounds of loyalty, betrayal, hunger, and hope. And behind every banner that waved proudly in the wind lay 1,000 untold stories, buried where no torchlight reaches. Thank you for walking with us through the silence of stone and the echoes of forgotten lives. Until next time, remember, History is not just what happened. It's what survived the walls, meant to silence it. Asterisk.